we still don't have a solution how to integrate the everyday activity with these with the monster and the blessing, which is equally important. I was just in a small art fair in Bogota, which was a great experience for many reasons. It was very small, mainly Latin American galleries showing, and I made a reflection which was quite interesting. Apparently, and I'm sure you know that most of the these Uber galleries, the super galleries, use the art fairs, and particularly the small art fairs, to dominate that very market, the local market of, for instance, in this case, Colombia and Venezuela, and maybe Peru, the 10 collectors from each of these countries, by participating in once and sort of cannibalizing that market by with the presence of this super famous gallery. All of the attention for once is attracted by that.
So the Colombian art fair was dominated by Gagosian, Hauser and Wirtz,
well, the Gagosian, White Cube, the whatever galleries. Now,
they were all there. They were all there.
They were not there because the organizers had understood this that this would be for once, and that it would take away from the message of this particular identity of the art fair, which I thought was quite smart, and to allow themselves and not to allow a gallery which, or a few galleries which in every other art fair would attract a lot of attention.
So could you explain to us why you chose to be present at the art fair?
Well, we were invited with a special project, which was I don't consider.
So it was a cheap ride.
No, it was a cheap ride, but it was also, we also do art tourism, don't we? I mean, we go to places because the trade brings us there, and it's interesting. I've never been to Bogota, so certainly this is a very interesting. Did you know that Bogota? You are most of you are Hispanic, so you know that Bogota, 2,600 meters height, is a city as big as London and New York. I didn't know that.
But what did it bring to you? I mean, if you decide to, because is this an alternative? Instead of choosing the bigger fairs, you choose, let's say, niche fairs in new continents where you're not familiar with the market. Is that a specific strategy that you employ, or?
No, I mean, I suppose every gallery tries to find new routes and new ways, and so it's certainly from that point of view part of the mission. But in this case, this particular case, we were invited to show a special project, and I thought it was a very good idea. The other thing with the blessing and the menace from the art fair that I wanted to address is this: where do we go? Where do we go from this absolute concentration to the business deals that are taking place in the art fairs? In my experience, I run a gallery in Stockholm and a gallery in Berlin, where I live since 10 years. Berlin is a very particular place. There used to be an art fair called Art Forum, which died or was killed.
Can you elaborate on that for
A
those
couple
of
of
us who
years
are not in the
ago,
know?
and
Did it go bankrupt, or was
no,
it?
no, it was not at all. It ceased existence because the local galleries, or a group of local galleries, decided that it wasn't
Relevant.
It didn't pay for itself, basically. And I think it never did. Maybe in the beginning, after the fall of the wall, everybody was interested in what was happening in Berlin. So it had had a few years of importance, and then it slowly fell asleep. But of course, a city like Berlin, which defines itself by the number of artists that are active, the spaces that are available at little cost, the number of galleries. Apparently there are 500 galleries in Berlin, and maybe 10% of those 500 galleries are probably some of the best in at least in Germany, but also I would probably say in at least in Europe. In the history of German gallerism, there is this, which is influenced by the presence of fascism until 1945, entartete Kunst, the degenerate art, I think is the expression. On one side, and communism on the other side. The German colleagues are not very interested in collective manifestations or cooperative manifestations, which I think is a consequence of that heritage. Now, being Swedish, I'm of course very consensus and neutral and consensus oriented and neutral. So a couple of years ago we started thinking together with a few colleagues of how to develop something as an alternative to these art fairs, and we started this event which we call the Gallery Weekend. Nothing special, but it for different reasons it has become a success, and I can only urge you to come and visit at some point. And
could you tell us in what sense it is a success? I mean, the number of buyers it attracts, or the attention, or how do you measure success?
Yeah,
in relation to
it's around 50 galleries organize and pay for a long weekend of different artistic events, mainly in the galleries, with the ambition to bring the audience from the other venues like art fairs back to the galleries where we believe. I mean, we really believe that there is a symbiosis relation between the artist and the gallery, and not a parasitical. We believe that commerce is a very important part of the process. An artist is a small entrepreneur who should be protected and should be relieved of the duties that the gallery take over in order for him to continue to work safely in his space or studio. So one of the consequences is that we want to bring back the gallery as the main stage for the artistic manifesto. Think about an installation, yeah, a sculptural installation. Does that work at all exist in the studio? Well, I'm not so sure it does. I think it may be the parts are being put together, but the actual artwork is only existing in the first place after the studio, namely the exhibition, which usually takes place in the gallery.
So you want, with a format like the Gallery Weekend, you wanted to draw attention again to the gallery as the first site of exhibition and existence of work. And do you think it's a format, because you explained that it's not antagonistic towards the fair, it's complementary, it's another tool?
Of course, it's
Is
another
there,
tool.
I mean, I was wondering if it's coincidence that because Amsterdam has recently started a similar initiative, capital A Gallery Weekend, after the death of the art fair, which was, I think, if I'm blunt, quite uninteresting in the first place. But there was a similar kind of strategy. I think Berlin, the myth about Berlin and about Amsterdam is that there's very little local market. So in order to draw collectors, you either need a fair or you need a gallery weekend. And if a fair no longer exists, you use the gallery weekend. So it has a pragmatic goal, but also an ideological one.
Yes, I mean, certainly everything is pragmatic in this world, in the gallery world. But of course, we absolutely wanted to call back the troops to the galleries, where we believe that the main work is that we do is performed, and I think that for different reasons, I'm not sure that every country and every city suits this model, but because a lot of a lot of cities have tried it with different degrees of success. But Berlin is, with its recent history, the city, everybody in the art world is very aware of the Cold War, etc. So it's a very attractive city. It's also very inexpensive, etc. So we manage to get every year somewhere between 10 and 15,000 visitors, which are highly motivated, and I think for us this has been a very, very strong experience and a great experience that it is actually possible. We also try to make another event, which is called ABC, Art Berlin Contemporary, which originally was thought to be an exhibition curated by the galleries, and not a regular fair, but this takes place half a year or so after the gallery weekend. This exhibition has had various curators oversee the installations and the
So may I interrupt you? If I understand correctly, ABC it's a collective exhibition by the galleries, but
yes.
curated by an external curator,
yes.
taking place in a specific venue?
It's usually in an old station, and it's curated by somebody who makes the practical curation.
A coordinator,
coordination. And the galleries decide on apply with a program, with a specific project, and that is then accepted by a jury.
And what is the difference with a regular art fair? Or
it's an art fair which could be described as I mean, there's not a variety of artists. Every gallery proposes one artist. So
So it's like statements.
Something like that. Yeah. But it's also not only young artists. It's also.
And why was this format launched, or what are the advantages, or the? It seems like you're doubting yourself whether or
yes,
not this is a.
I'm in the process of doubting my, and I think that it hasn't become the success that we would have expected it. An art fair needs to have a market, yeah, and the market just isn't very much present in Berlin as much as one would want it. It's the galleries in Berlin are, I think, dependent on international participation, and it's a quite a difficult situation.
So we'll soon see the death of ABC.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure.
Are you organize it in Brussels or?
No, Brussels is not my town.
I'm curious because it seems like you posit these, well, two, like, let's say, complements to the fair, the gallery weekend, the ABC, but it also means that maybe there's a blurring of lines. Somehow to me it sounds like Konrad Fischer, he used to organize the prospect exhibitions in the Kunsthalle Düsseldorf, where you have like where the let's say the strict divisions between profit and non-profit are blurred in a positive sense, and where the gallerist again takes up a very kind of like polymath role of being the curator, the salesperson, but where you create a kind of positive confusion.
Yes.
Was that the
I'm certain that is also one of the. I mean, I don't believe, as quite a few speakers have, that there is a big difference between the so-called non-profit art world and the gallery system. I think we are working towards the same goal with slightly different means. I mean, I don't understand why it's considered to be finer to receive a paycheck from the state or from the city every month than financing both artists and your own activity with sales. I really don't understand why that one is considered more proper than the other.
I don't think it is any longer, is it? I mean, at least
social
democratic governments seem to think
why
that.
Why are there no museum people here?
Because they don't have time.
They think that this is... Huh?
They don't have time.
Well, they have... I think there should be more interest for what we are doing, and that it's an absolute congruent activity.
But do you think that is maybe a kind of like, I mean, we've been talking a lot about moving forward, about prospects for the future. Do you think that this mixing up of the profit and the non-profit is a recipe?
Absolutely. I think that it is my generation, which is basically Marxist, that has created this ethos that profit and commerce is bad, and idealistic ventures such as receiving a paycheck every month is
for which
good.
You do have to work, but it's idealistic. But do you see that? I mean, Sylvain was explaining in a way at the end of his talk in relation to a question that the Chinese market is dominated by blurred lines. I mean, curators take up positions as advisors, have maybe a more like agent-like role. Can we learn from the Chinese model, which we now partially see as reprehensible, corrupt, according to Jocelyn, fascist? I didn't really get that one, but
I think
do you see? Can we learn from that, but still keep in mind that there is in the West a sort of distrust towards commerce?
Yeah. I would like to work. I would like our colleagues here to enhance the feeling of pride in what you are doing, and not to give in to that attitude that you are the petty brethren of this activity, and I think that we have to really stand up for what we are doing, and also take on a discussion with critics, museum curators, etc., and not give in to being the Shylocks of the art world.
But do you think in doing that looking at Asia could be an inspiration?
My experience of Asia is not. I mean, I tend to agree with my friend that I have. My experience is too small, really, to say something. But I'm not very interested in that alternative.
And do you, apart from the weekend formats, I'm checking with our time conductors whether we're still okay. Can you conceive of other formats than the gallery weekend, the ABC, that could be complementary to the fair, or instead of I often have the feeling there's an incessant complaining about the fair that is also very fatalistic. It's like, yeah, we don't really want to go, but we have to go, so we make a choice, but then we still feel that we're neglecting our homework. So there's a certain kind of like a fatalism that I understand, but I wonder, like, how can you come up with complementary strategies? Should that be done collectively? Should that be done like by one?
No, I do believe in cooperation, and
you said before that you did. You said before that you did, that you were a consensus-based Swede.
Did I?
Yeah. No, sorry, but you don't believe in cooperation?
I do believe in cooperation, and I think it's the only way. But I also think that education processes will become. I mean, your initiative to develop an art school for future galleries, I think, is incredibly interesting. And I think also at one point I used to be a member of this Basel committee, and at some point we were talking about the fair taking over part of the educational problematic, and maybe creating a job, what do you call it, like a job center, an exchange of. As we all know, there is no education in this job. Everything is learned by word of mouth. I mean, there is no specific education, and at some point, I'm sure there will be a specific education. What you started, but most of the colleagues around the world have had other jobs, and then at some point decided to take off and on this
adventure. But so you think that maybe instead of like saying we have to decrease the power of the fair as an abstraction, we have to give it more functions.
No, but it is more and more a natural center of information.
So it could have additional functions next to sales and discourse, education.
I believe so, yeah.
Is that an idea you want to pitch with somebody in particular? Is that an idea you want to pitch somebody in particular?
Yeah.
Do you think Art Basel or Frieze or should take that up, or rather minor fairs?
I think all of the art fairs will have to assume certain roles in that process. At least to think about it.
And do you think that move should come from within the committees, or should it come from galleries who propose an idea to the fair?
It will come naturally, I think. What?
We get the red card. We know what that means. So, question time. Does anybody have questions for Claes? See one there.
I just would like to have an answer on...
Otherwise, you're not recorded for posterity.
would like to have an answer on the issue where you were there. So art fairs versus non-fair models, who do they serve?
Well, they serve you, for instance, and they serve me, and they serve the artist, the commerce, the whole development of I mean, there are all sorts of limitations that could be mentioned, but I'm absolutely convinced that the art fairs are there to stay, and they have to. I'm sure they also have to emancipate, and there will be. Apparently, there are 500 art fairs in the world.
Yeah, okay, but I mean that art fairs is something different than non-fair models. So I think the question is put over there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mine. Who do serve the art fair? Who does it serve? Whom? And the non-fair, whom does that serve? That's the question, no?
But I think that the second question is impossible. I mean,
Yeah.
and
No,
probably
but
this is
it's
a
your
linguistic.
question. It's not my question.
It's not mine, but
No.
anyhow.
No, but it's put there as a question, no?
Who do they serve?
Yeah.
But if we would have
Well,
to provide answers to every question that was
No.
put
It's one
during
question,
the conference.
and it's the head of. It's the question why you are sitting there.
No, but maybe the question is the answer, so to speak.
Ah, okay. Oh, that's a good one.
It's a
And I think that this is what we are trying to discuss a little bit. What are the answers for that, and what are the alternatives?
and I'm sure, like, I mean, this is not that we also expect or hope that there's not only questions from the floor, but maybe also comments or other suggestions, because Claes gave some hints at possible alternatives.
Yeah,
But I'm sure
yeah.
there must be ideas in the room.
Yeah, you are
that
the experts. I'm only
complementary.
one of this collective.
I see somebody who wants to maybe
I can
respond to
speak?
that. Yes.
My name is Barbara Ciferin, and I have a gallery for fine art photography in Ljubljana, Slovenia, which is very small or non-market. But next year we will have 10 years of struggling. And the art fairs are for us the only access to get collectors. I will not say buyers, but buyers are also very important for us, because from buyers we get money for our program. But our goal is to get collectors. So because we are a small nation, but we still have, let's say, very important art to show to the rest of the world. So if our art will be in some important collections, this is our goal. And I have to say I'm the only private gallery for fine art photography. We have galleries, other galleries, private galleries, but for just so specialized, I'm the only one. And they are inviting us. We were at Paris Photo twice and other fairs, but now they are inviting us to other important fairs, but we have to think about how to get money, even for the smallest booth. And maybe sometimes we will get some help from the state, but now it's a very, very big economic crisis, and which is, I think, also let's call it bubble in our country, because a lot of people are getting advantage of it. It's not so big as it seems to be, but for culture, it's very difficult to get money.
And do you mean, I mean, in your case, or that the fair is your only vehicle to get collectors, but you can't get to the fair?
Yeah,
That
and
it's
when
a
I
kind of-
asked people who were inviting me, organizers to the fair, I said, if you want to have me so badly there, do you have some discount for me or something.
So is
And
this a
they-
proposition? Is this your
Yeah.
comment that there should be different categories?
Maybe
in
if you
fairs?
want, if some fair wants to show special kind of art, then, and if there is economic problem for the gallery to be there, then maybe they can offer us some, or I don't know,
I think some countries and some cities have support structures for the galleries, and I think that's maybe a way to go to try to engage politically, so to speak, with the cultural department of your city.
I tried all. And maybe for the next year I will get some. And I did receive a few years ago, but my I don't know how to tell, because I would have here expose of an hour and a half to explain you the situation, but just to say that I'm this fool, that I'm very direct and transparent, and I tell what I think. And we have the other gallerist or so, which is who is very who gets money from the state, a lot of it, and he's calling himself non-profit.
May I interrupt you?
I mean,
Because I think it's an
maybe-
interesting topic, but maybe it's something to discuss during lunch or in a more informal setting, because it's so specific. Are there any other...
My name is Juan Antonio Maragall. I'm the director of an art gallery in Barcelona named Trama. I have a double question to you. Do you think that the success of the gallery weekend in Berlin is also due to the fact that Berlin has held art fairs before, and there is a certain capacity of bringing people from other countries already proved in Berlin? First question. Second question is, how much do the art galleries in Berlin pay to the organization of the gallery weekend to sustain it?
I will start with that question. For each gallery of a certain age pays, I think last year it was 7,000 euros for the coordination, and for that you get participation in the program. You get advertising. You get there's the finale of this weekend is a grandiose dinner, which is for around 1,000 people, where each gallery can invite 15 people. So it seems it's the cost of the 50% of the cost of a small art fair, but it seemed to be worth, even if 7,500 or whatever. It seems to be a high sum. It also, I think, for most galleries have been very profitable. What was your second question?
The first question was whether the success of the gallery weekend had anything to do with the fact that there had been art fairs in Berlin before, so that it's marked as a venue for art.
This gallery weekend initiative was started parallel to the existing art fair at the time. I think this is almost now 10 years ago, maybe 2000, maybe 9 years ago is when we started the gallery weekend organization. But I would think that Barcelona would lend itself very strongly for such an initiative.
That was a secret
yes,
agenda. Why?
Yes, I mean, I think that it would be very attractive to travel to Barcelona for a whole lot of people, if such an initiative could be strongly coordinated by
Are there any other questions? Last question, Georgina says, so if you want to take the floor or use it to ask a question to somebody else? No, nothing at all? Ah.
Does this work? Hi. First, I must apologize. I'm not supposed to speak here because I'm not a gallerist. I'm here because I write for the press, but I'm also an artist. Since I have been watching you closely for a number of years and have listened attentively to your fascinating presentations, I think if I can resume the problem in a very respectful way, I must say that the basic confusion sometimes is that a lot of galleries should make up their minds whether they are working as marriage agencies or escort services.
Merit agencies or escort services?
Yes.
Can you briefly explain what you mean by that?
Well, I think the image is very simple, and that the distinction is very useful because some of those, by following on the press, those record prices paid by some top buyers, and based on your distinction between buyers and collectors, I think that those top buyers basically want an escort service. And they are willing to pay top prices because they are the kind of people who need to know that they're paying top prices in order to be sure that the escort is worth it. And collectors are looking for a marriage. And although I am a happily married man, I don't have any moral preference over one or the other. But what I know is that if you provide a wife to someone who's ordering an escort, both will be displeased. And if you provide an escort girl to someone who's looking for a wife, both will be very displeased. And by listening to you and seeing how at the same time you feel enhanced and threatened, both by auctions and by fairs, it seems that the first step is to make up in your mind which kind of services you are willing to provide.
I think that's a very interesting concluding remark to munch over or mulch over during lunch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel addressed, but so a merit agency is an agency, you mean marriage agency? Okay, now I get it. Providing wives or concubines. I think we should maybe leave it at that note and come back to that potentially later.
It's a question mark which...
Thank you, Claes.